Hi everybody. It's been a while since I made a video, and I have played a lot of hands. But I've learned quite a lesson. As you can see, I'm down 9 buy-ins since my last video, and the majority of it was in one session here at the bottom. I lost 7 buy-ins in one session, and then since then just kind of been break even. Lost a little bit, maybe down an extra buy-in. No, an extra 2 buy-ins there, for a total of just down 9 buy-ins in a young 11,000 hands. So I thought I should get into some of these hands. Um, Funnily enough, I remember this session particularly well because I kept getting it in all in pre. Once with kings versus aces, once with queens versus kings, and then the other one versus a shorter stack with tens versus jacks. And that really sums up how that session went. It just felt like I was running into a bunch of spots, both pre-flop and post-flop, where I was destined to get stacked. But that's how I felt, and I needed to objectively look at my play. Obviously, this could just be down to variance. I'll show wide in the search since the beginning of 5NL that I did have one session that was the opposite of this, where I gained $40 in the span of 2,000 hands. So it could easily just be down to variance, but I kind of have to treat it as if it's not variance, as if there's definitely something to improve on, because, well, I'm not a perfect player and there's always stuff to improve on. I've got a selection of hands that has a common theme, and probably one of my biggest leaks that I need to address, and I'm facing it right now. It's pretty good that I'm facing it now, because I didn't really experience this in 2NL, but I'm experiencing this more in 5NL. So, like, funnily enough, I didn't really expect this, but it is actually a difference between 2NL and 5NL. A lot of people would think that they're the same skill-wise, right? But there's actually something different that I didn't adjust when I moved up, that I will start to adjust now. Let's see what that common theme is. First hand, see an open, and we 3-bet ace-king from the big blind. Get a call. Flop comes ace-5-4, and I c-bet 1/3 with my entire range, which is still what I'm doing. Get a call. All well and good. I should be ahead of most of his calling range here. Turns a 3, and I value bet 140 here. And our opponent jams. I decide to call it off, and this is horrendous. I believe my reasoning at the time was that the opponent is really only representing 6-7 suited, but obviously he can just have ace-5, ace-4, ace-3, 5s, 4s, 3s that chopped on the flop. There are literally so many hands that beat me, not to mention ace-deuce suited. There are literally so many hands that beat me, and whenever someone calls you on the flop and then check raises you on the turn, well, this isn't a check raise, but raises you on the turn, especially after such a big bet, like a bet almost pot in a 3-bet pot. It's always nutted, right? I have already observed this in the database with another sample where I played like 70,000 hands at 10NL, Snap, or Zoom or whatever, and the turn raise statistic after flop call was extremely small, which is pretty representative of the nuts. So this is horrendous. We are behind almost 100% of the time. Even if this guy somehow has like some random king queen of hearts and decides to do this, it's just not enough to make up for the pure amount of value combinations that he has. And when I call it off, it's no surprise really that he just has 6-7. So there really was no need for this call off. If I would have folded, I would have saved myself an extra 280, right? I would have saved myself an extra 60, 70 big blinds. Anyway, next hand. Ace-10 off in the big blind, we defend versus a 3x, which is kind of okay. We check. Our opponent c-bets, and we decide to check raise with the 10 and the ace of spades blocker. Seems fine to me. We get a call. Turn is a 9, so we turn the straight, which is good. And we bet a third. Purely exploitatively, I don't think we should be taking this sizing with a lot of our range, but maybe it is. I have yet to check it out in Pio Solver, but it could be good. It just doesn't feel like it. This feels quite exploitative. Just trying to get called by like 2-pair sets, other flush draws, even though I have the ace of spades, you know. And our opponent raises. When our opponent raises, he's representing a 10 and Jack 10. It's really important to note that I don't think my opponent raises here with 9s, 8s, 7s or 6s or any other 2-pair. He's literally representing a 10 or Jack 10. Versus that range, my ace 10 is obviously only chopping or is beat. I need 25% right now to break even, but I've also got to keep in mind I'm going to face a river bet, because if his range is only a 10 or Jack 10, then all of those hands are going to bet the river, right? Unless the river pairs. So it looks like I'm getting 25%, but really it's going to be much worse when he bets the river, and might convince myself to call off, you know. So it's worth considering when I do make this call. I still think it's a call on the turn. Just feels really nitty to fold here, but it's not exactly a great situation. Again, he called the flop. He called the flop check raise, and decides to be really aggressive back when I continue my aggression on the turn. So it's just, it's just nutted. It's just always a 10 or Jack 10, and I'll chop with a lot of 10s, right? Which makes this a call. However, when I call, and the board pairs, and he jams. This board pair, as I said before, he doesn't have 9s, 8s, 7s or 6s, because they wouldn't raise the turn like this. They'd realise it's too thin. This board pair should favour me a lot more than it should favour my opponent. I can still have 9s, 8s, 7s and 6s, right? They would probably bet a third on the turn after the check raise. Maybe I don't check raise 9s, maybe I do, who knows. But I have all the boats here, and he doesn't have any boats. Because of that, isn't it kind of weird if he jams a 10 here? Like, is Villain really going to jam a 10? Also, I know you can't see this, but in real time, this was a snap jam. Like, he didn't care what the river was. It was a snap jam. He didn't care that it was a board pair. He just went all in straight away. Would a naked 10 go all in straight away on the board pair? It looks like Jack 10 only, and in real time I thought that Jack 10 was only 12 combinations, and if he ever does this with another 10, then I should just be calling. Maybe you guys out there who's viewing this may also think that, and should still think that I should call. But honestly, it really felt like only Jack 10. And if I know this, and I knew this because I was thinking about it in real time, when I remember this hand, and I was thinking I should fold this really, but then this would be quite nitty. Yeah. So I call, and he has Jack 10, and I really do not want to be results oriented, because it looks very results oriented to say that he only has Jack 10 when he had Jack 10 this one time. But if you think about the line he took, is a 10 really going to jam this river? Okay, on to the next hand. We raise a7 suited, and we flop top 2. Great. We bet, and we get check raised. This check raise is obviously really good for us because we have top pair. It could be some ace-king that decides to flat pre, because some people do that at these stakes. It could be ace-queen. It could be ace-7. It could be ace-2, even though there's only one combination of ace-2 suited left. And it could be one combination of 7s, or it could be 3 combinations of 2s. It also could be any number of flush draws, really. Like, some people might just decide to raise a random flush draw. So we continue, bearing in mind that this is going to be quite a strong range. 4 on the turn. Opponent bets. Still calling because we're still ahead of a lot of his value range, right? We're still chopping with ace 7. We still beat ace deuce. We still beat ace queen and some ace kings. And obviously we lose to 7s and 2s. River 5. And opponent snap bets pot. I know you can't see the timings here, but he snap bet pot. If my assigned range to villain is correct, if he was bluffing with a flush draw, would he take this line? Like, would he take this line with a flush draw? He might, if he's aggro enough. Is he going to bet ace deuce, ace 7? Is he going to bet ace queen like this? It's probably the biggest question you should be asking yourself, because that's the biggest part of the value range that we beat. Is he going to bet ace king and ace queen like this? A lot of regulars don't value bet this thin for this size, and they're kind of scared to pull the trigger with bluffs as well. So it's not really ace king or ace queen. It's not likely to be a flush draw either. It's literally deuces, 7s, maybe ace 7 and ace 2. That makes it kind of close. It really does. In my head, in real time, I didn't do all this combination stuff in my head. I just thought, this guy's really only representing pocket 2s, because pocket 7s is obviously one combination, and pocket 2s is 3, so it's more likely to be 2s than 7s. 4 combinations of sets that beat me. And maybe he value bets ace 7 and ace deuce, but even then that's kinda thin. Would they really bet like this? Maybe they would. If they do, it's a clear call, because if we beat 3 and we lose to 4, we have 33% odds to call. But if he doesn't bet those, then we just lose 100% of the time. Maybe I'm thinking about it too much, and this should be a snap, because I know in Pio Solver it's a snap. But after facing such an aggressive line, you know, check raise, bet, pot. It's when people click the pot button, man. There's something about that pot button that makes it look really nutted, and it usually is a lot of the time. But it's just, yeah, something I've been mulling over when looking back at my hands. Like, I know in Pio this is a snap, but like, it really feels like villain only has pocket 2s here. Something I should consider. Here's a hand where we get on the we face the same line pretty much, except we're actually got a hand to call with, and it highlights a difference. That's good to note. So we open, get min 3 bet, and we 4 bet, get called. Flop is king queen 9, all spades, and we've got the ace of spades. Min bets, and we treat it like a check, and we just bet a third pot with our entire range. Get a call, okay? So we start off with the passive line of check call, basically. Deuce of clubs, and we bet again. Very exploitative here, we're clearly versus a worse player. Get a call, that's good. River ace. He donk pot bets. Now, this is nutted, except we have the ace of spades, so it can't be nutted. We've already seen that villain can be quite fishy, so the other possible thing that he's doing is that he's betting with jack 10 of spades, which is possible. He's betting with a lower flush, which is possible. You know, if he has 8-7 suited, he could just do this. Or he's overvaluing a rivered 2 pair, right? Or maybe a set. that he kind of played weirdly on the flop and turn. But because villain played it weirdly, I'm less inclined to believe that he has a set. I'm more inclined to believe that he just has like ace queen or ace nine or ace king or, you know, something like that, some kind of two pair. The similarity between this hand and the other hand is that when villain takes an aggressive line after being passive, it's usually strong. And when I call here, because we beat two pairs, and he has two pair, it's like seeing these hands kind of shows that when villains are passive and then they just turn aggressive randomly on the turn, they've just turned something, or if they are aggressive on the river, they've just rivered something, you know? But what's good about this spot though is that we actually beat some of his value, which is nice. In the other spots though, with the ace king first hand, we don't beat any value. And here, pocket fives, we win this because we straight up cooler someone, but it's the exact same thing. We raise, get 3-bet, pretty standard call. Check, check, alright? This check is pretty key because it indicates passiveness. He's either trapping with pocket queens, or he's got like, you know, ace king, ace jack, maybe king jack that doesn't c-bet, maybe like ace x suited, you know? He's got a lot of air, and maybe like pocket queens. So this check is very weakening. Turn jack, and we bet out to try and get called by like something, some kind of pair, and some ace x maybe, and we get raised. Now this turn raise, if you haven't guessed already, actually take the time, guess what this raise is, right? Villain's passive on the flop, and then he suddenly gets aggressive on the turn. This to me is the most obvious ace king ever. Right, he's just turned it with ace king. There's no other hand really that takes this line. Maybe pocket queens. Maybe pocket queens, but then there's so many more combinations of ace king than there are pocket queens. So when I'm calling this turn, which I am because I only need 23% plus implied odds when I boat up, I'm calling to hit the boat on the river. And when I do, and check to him, and he jams, he always has ace, king, and queens here. Always. So if I had anything, you know, if I had 8-9, for example, I probably should just fold on the turn, to be honest, even though it looks ridiculous. Or if I had king 9, I should probably just fold on the turn to the raise. And with pocket fives, obviously I've got implied odds when I boat up. So, yeah, something to address. If I would have realised this and played these hands again, I probably would have saved myself a couple of buy-ins, which helps with the downswing. Anyway, let's have a look and see what the overall graph looks like. In total, I've played 19,000 hands, and I'm still up 6 buy-ins, just down from the $80 to the $30, you know? So just, you know, healing wounds and just still trying to get up to that $100 mark so we can move up to 10-0. Hopefully now that I've learned these things and looked in my database. Oh, I also looked at all of my hands, and there were no hands where I took that stationary line of like, if I bet the flop and the villain calls, and then I bet the turn and he raises and I call with a bluff catcher. I've had no hands in the winning section where I win. That's not like, you know, ace king or pocket fives, not a turned river or not a turned boat or a rivered boat. It's always in the losing column. So it really is just nutted, and something I should just be more disciplined with, honestly. If I told myself 10,000 hands ago to just fold all of your hands when you face like random aggression after being passive, I would have saved a couple, and I'd probably be at, you know, $40 one or $50 one. Stuff to bolster your win rate with, right? If you can fix this leak, you can just focus on value betting everything else. Anyway, this has been kind of a long video, but this one needs to be done after 10,000 hands, right? I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.